All right, today's hot topic, we are going to talk League for Clubs. They announced a brand new league, a fourth tier venture, a bridge league between the amateur and the professional world. And here to get all the details on this exciting new announcement, we have Arik Housley from the League of Clubs. Welcome in, sir, and welcome to Morning Kickaround.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you guys.
Appreciate you coming by, Arik. I see you're repping your club, Napa Valley, 1839. Very cool. Seems like a dream running a soccer club in Napa Valley. I went out for the first time in the spring and visited and saw a van with the logo. I don't think you guys were doing anything, so I couldn't connect. But very excited to talk to you about for League for Clubs. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. So I teased it a little bit. The League for Clubs, you had your first year as an elite amateur nation-spanning amateur league in 2025, and then 2026, or going into 2026, you're talking about a ProAm expansion league. Tell us about what this idea is and what this new league is.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we had from the beginning, we've always had the look at what's really happening in the U.S. ecosystem. And, for Napa, we function at a higher level than most amateur teams. We're running at the high 200s a year. Most teams average, whether it's USL, UPSL, NPSL, you name it, League for Clubs, most of them are under 75,000 a year. And the jump to tier 3 is 3.5 million, not even counting the franchise fee. That's just like your annual fee. So how does anybody, let's even say you're at 100,000 a year, how does anybody take a business and jump 35x and expect, unless you have some guy with, man or woman with severely deep pockets, how do you expect that to actually be something sustainable? So when you get into the pro-rel argument, it's like, there's regionalization discussions, there's all these things, but one of the things is just that financial discussion. How do you get into that middle tier? And that's when we started saying, let's find a way to do that. And we feel like we've found kind of that niche that falls in there.
Okay, so I think one thing that's come up, Arik, and in fact, it's here from our friend Chris, one of our ultras, is the league sanctioned by U.S. Soccer as semi-pro. Is there how does the paperwork operate? That's so important in American soccer. Who's sanctioning what, and how does all that work?
Yeah, so right now we're working in our regular amateur level with the League for Clubs with USASA. In this scenario, our intention is to be able to have players that if you've seen the system, well, you guys are obviously extremely aware of it, is if you have a player that's playing, let's say for Oakland Roots, and they're coming off of injury and their second team currently plays in UPSL, they have to sign an amateur reinstatement to then get in and go back and forth. We're still falling into that right now because the idea of starting a PLS4 and get the United States USSF to sanction it is, it's going to be a much bigger hurdle to jump. USASA has said that they would sanction us to work within their realm, which would mean our players would be able to move up and down. We would not be sanctioned. Any team in the USASA is sanctioned, but this wouldn't be directly into the USSF in that way.
Interesting. So I guess how would that work? I did see a question from another listener earlier when this news came out. How does that work? Does this bother anyone's NCAA statuses? Work playing alongside a pro?
Yeah. So, ultimately, when we sat down and talked about it, and we've spoken to people on both sides, on the agent side as well as the pro player side and the contracts that would go with it. Any club, including our own, like in the West Coast for the League for Clubs, we play March through the end of August or to early August, right? NCAA players really are only available May 5th, May 7th until. So if you think you're going to play from April 1 through October and rely on NCAA players from May 20th for a lot of them, and then many of them, their coaches are like, I want them back July 1. So unless you want to try to put your 20 games into a 5-week window, which is what some of the leagues try to do, then, at least in the amateur space, then it doesn't really make sense to really rely solely on college players. When you're talking about player development, at least in my opinion, and what I've seen when traveling and doing Europe and seeing how they're doing it as well, it's 4 years, 5 years for some players, even 6 at times for players to go NCAA. Yet when you're at these scouting combines and all, they're looking at 18 and 19-year-olds, 17-year-olds, that if we're sitting around waiting for that 24-year-old to come back out of college to be what's going to drive it. And don't get me wrong, there's some outstanding players at NCAA level. But this is not going to be focused on how do we do what's best for the NCAA player. So we have the opportunity to pay some players. It's happening now in the US in amateur soccer. They're just saying, this guy's my director of media, even though he's your striker, right? The difference is we would be going above board with it.
Well, okay, so that's what you're saying here, Arik, because the chatter I've seen from people who are very invested in all of this, especially down the pyramid, is that this is the kind of thing that leads to, well, first of all, you might end up with players giving up their eligibility. You have to be very careful that players don't lose their eligibility with the NCAA if they still want to go back and play college soccer. So imagine that's a lift here. But this idea of, okay, this is not under the table, this is above board. How do you regulate that? Like, what is the mechanism? Who's overseeing all of this to make sure that these payments are happening in the proper ways and there isn't a director of marketing who's playing striker?
Yeah, ultimately, because this isn't USSF sanctioned, technically any business can hire somebody on a contract to say, hey, you're going to be a professional player for my team, or my director of media as well, however you want to compensate them. The difference in this, because there's no CBAs or things that are unionized in that way, we could have 6 players paid, 12 players paid, or 0 players paid. It would really depend on your current model. I know when we're doing the pro forma for Napa, you're looking at to really do it and not even pay that many players, just enough because of California. You're looking at a $650,000 a year budget, maybe $750,000. If I was doing this in Oklahoma City, I probably could do that for significantly less. It also depends on some clubs own their own facility. And that's a big expense as well. So for us on the NCAA player side, technically the way that we're understanding it, we're working out some of those details now, is if a team did say, I want to have NCAA players eligible, then they could just say, well, we're just not going to compensate any players. We're just going to play in this league.
That's the current rule, right? If you're an amateur player and you want to maintain your amateur eligibility, you cannot be playing with pros on the same team. You can play against pros, you just can't play with them.
Right, which is what we do in Napa. Like, we don't have any paid players in our system, but I know there's other teams that we've played against frequently that have paid players. So, and many of them are not officially paid players, but they're taking that chance if something came up, right?
So as we talk about this, something that kind of comes to mind from recent memory was the NPSL Members League with the pre-COVID tournament, when they tried to kind of make that bridging league there pre-COVID. So, and I believe they ran into some insurance issues and that kind of fell apart quickly. So what kind of differentiator are we talking about now with the League for Clubs proposed plan?
Yeah, so we were a part of the Members Cup, Founders Cup. That's actually when we wore this jersey, commemorating kind of gun violence prevention efforts when we do our cause kits every year. So it was 2019. It fell apart in the last kind of end. I think there was 5 teams that ended up making it happen. Chattanooga, Cosmos, us, Michigan Stars, Detroit City, Milwaukee. And it came down to insurance. And so I asked the same thing of Sean Jones, one of our owners, and said, hey, how does that work? Because that was what brought some of the teams literally from the table in the 11th hour. And he said, according to what we're understanding is you are, it's, I mean, look at the US Open Cup, right? You have amateurs playing against professionals. It's a matter of sanctioning and doing it. So it's a matter of saying, if we insure them and do it. So I think it's been 7 years since that somehow the insurance is now sorted out in the way that there is not a discussion on if you have paid players versus amateurs in the process.
So you said you said that this is USASA. This is not sanctioned by U.S. Soccer. Are you of the opinion, is there a push here to ask U.S. Soccer to open up the books and find a way to create some guidelines, regulations around a professional, amateur, a pro-am kind of situation? No, Division 4 is what you want.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think ultimately our thought is instead of taking the approach of other leagues and go and say, hey, give us provisional sanctioning and let's see if we can show you that it works, which one of them that's currently dealing with it now, it's not working. I'd say we're actually saying the difference. Let us show you that we know what we're doing. Let us show you that we're going to regionalize play with the intent to have at least 3 regions, a central, a west, and east. Have all of the play regional with national semifinal and final playoff, because ultimately much of this cost is happening with travel. If I have to go to Miami, the cost of that's just the killer. When we did it in 2019 for the Members Cup, I mean, we were spending $25,000 a weekend to fly out on a red eye on Friday night, which technically isn't, legal in the in the PLS. You're supposed to be there at least 24 hours ahead of time. We'd get a hotel room to throw them all into at least rest for the day. They'd play the game at night. They'd go out and have some beers after, and we'd fly back the next morning. And it was $25,000 to get over there. That's just a killer for cost. So, bus rides rather than plane rides, focusing on regional travel is really important. So our intention is to try to say like, hey, if we can show that this would work and get 18, 24 teams across the country over time that are, like really hyper regionalized in a sense, then the idea would be is to really make this work in that $500,000 to $750,000 window. And if you can do it for less because you're not paying players and such, or you have your own facility, great. If you spend more because you want to, then go for it. Because the idea is to incubate some of these teams to then make the jump to USL 1 or to MLS Next Pro when the time comes.
So truly a bridge league there. So interesting. So the bullet points are, lower cost and allowing teams to grow, and obviously regionalized play. So what would you say is so what's the next step? Like, what's the implementation? You just announced this is the plan. So how does this become tangible?
I mean, I was thinking Morning Kickaround would be the live stream platform for all games, but maybe we shouldn't start there. You'd get some additional sign on people on the MK list, right? I think, ultimately we're planning on being at the U.S. Coaches Convention this year to have some real discussions. We know that there's a lot of teams that are considering USL 1 or MLS Next Pro or NISA and just going, gosh, like, I don't know that I can make that jump. It's just too big. And so our thought is, well, then why don't you consider this? There's no 5-year commitment. There's no leave your professional status. You can't go to another one. We'll sue you for $1 million, whatever that stuff. It's like, come in. If this works for you, great. If you like it and you want to stay, because ultimately we did a whole docuseries for Napa 1839 and our fans don't even know that we're not professional. And I'm thinking, are you serious? Right? For those of us that are soccer nerds, we know, but they just want a great family fun soccer event with good quality. I mean, for us, beer and wine in the stands doesn't hurt. And I think ultimately it's giving them those experiences. So if you get to let's say Napa gets there and we're going, hey, we're profitable or close to it. We've gained valuation. We're performing at a level. We're a community club and we want to stay there. We don't want to take the jump to a, $3.5-4 million a year, then stay. And if we want to make the jump, then make the jump. So the thought is to have meetings at the coaches convention for teams that are interested in saying I kind of want to dip my toe in, but I don't know that I want to make that kind of a financial commitment. And go from there. So we're, right now let's have some discussions. And then there's definitely some parts of what we want to do is get the early adopters around the table, where I'm a firm believer in get smart people in the room together. And we're going to come up with a lot better solutions than just one guy going, hey, I know everything. Let me tell you how we're going to do it.
I wish you the best of luck. I mean, it's ambitious to say the least. And I know that so much of what American soccer is right now is trying to fill those gaps. So we appreciate your time, Arik.
In an effort to get more people in the membership, become an MK Ultra. And following today's live show, Ben Rohde, representative from the League for Clubs, will be in the Morning Kickaround Discord server answering any further questions, as we've loved our time with Arik Housley, owner of Napa Valley 1839 and one of the League for Club founders. Thank you so much for your time. Very early out in the West Coast, sir. And the conversation will continue on the Morning Kickaround Discord server. But thank you for joining us here on the show, sir.
All right. Thanks, guys.